All right, Clint from the doorway too. Hanging out with I think it's Chrys, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Chrys from is that Continuum? Is that how you say it, or am I butchering it?
Oh yeah, no, it's the Lylat Continuum, just like
Perfect.
Lylat and Star Fox.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to make sure I had it right. That's what I thought.
No problem.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks again for doing this. Really do appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah, no problem at all.
Glad that we got together. So my first question is going to be my first. I am a total kind of anime sci-fi geek and
All right.
nerd. So when I saw the album cover and I saw that it was progressive death metal, it was a win-win for me. So kind of explain to me why the album cover and how does it fit with the album itself?
Well, I wanted the album cover to look the way that it does to kind of represent a like a '90s anime like movie poster or something like that. So I'm hoping I got that across. Um the concept is Gundam related, which is obviously an anime. So just
Yeah.
having that visual representation, like as the album cover, kind of clued everything in for me pretty much.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I felt the Gundam vibe right away, so that's kind of the reason why I was asking. Uh, but so ephemeral. Uh, this is your first record as a band.
Oh, correct.
I think we got a bit of delay going on, Dill, just so you know.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool.
Uh, all right,
I'll groove with it, no problem.
all right, no problem. But yeah, so the thing I really like the most about the record is kind of jazzy death metal prog all kind of rolled into one, and I kind of want to talk about one song in particular because it's my favorite track, and I'm going to kind of jump into that right now, and that's Level 5. Like Level
Oh,
5 is just my favorite song overall, and it's the saxophone that does it for me. Like I
oh yeah.
really really dig that sax. All
Awesome.
right. So can you talk a little bit about that song and kind of tell me how that came to be?
Yeah, level five. It's definitely the most rhythmically bouncing track on the whole album. It's got a lot of melody in it, a lot of cool grooves. The whole saxophone part, actually, it came to me in a dream while I was sleeping. So I was just sleeping, and then all of a sudden I get like this like spirit temple from Ocarina of Time kind of like vibe going on, and then I was like, holy shit, I gotta like go record that immediately. So I just used my MIDI controller and just wrote it with like a shitty like saxophone plugin or something like that, and then sent it over to Patrick Corona, who does the live sax for Rivers of Nile, and
Mhm.
um, I told him, I'm no saxophone player at all, so you put your whole spin behind it, and he did a great job. I love it.
Very cool. Yeah, that track overall kind of to me encompasses your band. Like it kind of has elements of everything in it. Like it's all the best parts of that record all combined. So uh like it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you guys. So it's that's very cool. Um I want to kind of talk about being a frontman and a keyboard player. That's kind of an interesting role. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen much in death metal. So
Oh.
yeah. So kind of tell me how that came about. Like were you always going to take over the vocal role, or was it something that was somebody else was going to do and you were kind of working on arrangements, or was it always thought out for you to be the vocalist for this project?
It was always intended for me to do vocals for this, and keyboard as well, at least for live. I don't write all of the keyboard. I write like parts and bits and pieces and stuff, but it's more of a collaboration between everybody else. And then I just want to be able to handle it live, just to fill like all that empty space, so no one's missing out on anything. But I've always loved keyboards and synthesizers and everything like that, so it's nothing new for me, no.
Good, good. No, no, and you can hear that the interplay between the guitars and the drums and the keyboard, they're all there. Like it's definitely a thought out process. Um, I kind of want to talk about the more proggy side of this project too, because that's what kind of interests me is there's a real brutal side to this band, but there's really a super strong kind of prog rock kind of element to it as well too. And and I'm not even talking about like, progressive death metal. I mean full on like there are like early Genesis and Yes moments in my mind, like when I'm listening to this record. So like and that's stuff I love. Like I grew up listening to that. I'm an old man. I'm 48 years old. So like I've listened to music since the mid 70s. But like I said, talk to me a little bit about the love of prog music, because you can tell that there's a strong influence of that in this album.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely love Pink Floyd and like Rush, things like that. So initially we were just trying to like blend Pink Floyd with death metal kind of and like
Nice.
throw in like some Pat Metheny jazz and like stuff like that also. Nintendo music, Koji Kondo and like all that. So just all those melodic proggy kind of elements just jammed all into one supersonic sound.
Nice. Yeah. So that was kind of the next thing I was going to talk about. You kind of jumped into it, which is kind of awesome. I was going to say, like, there is a very anime vibing soundtrack element to this record at times too. And I am a huge, again, nerd for that kind of stuff. So like when I hear that kind of late 90s, early 2000s kind of really rockin' anime soundtrack backgrounds mixed into it, was that something that was done on purpose, or was it just something that once you started making the record, hey, you saw that that was going to work?
I mean, it was done on purpose to an extent, but I mean, this album kind of just naturally progressed as we were writing it. So, um, I guess that whole like 90s anime soundtrack vibe background just like evolved as we
Yeah,
progressed through it.
cool. Um, so if somebody was to ask you what your influences were to create this project, do you have specific bands in mind that did it, or was it just a whole bunch of different projects that came together at once? Because the hardest thing I have with this band is kind of labeling it to one project or one
Oh,
band, because
yeah.
there's so many different things going on. The best way I can say it is like I even told my friend who's a diehard like extreme metal fan with me. I said, imagine you put like Yakuza together with like like Morphine and anime soundtracks, and then you decided that you wanted to listen to old UK death metal. Like
Oh,
that was the best. But is there any specific bands that like were the reason why this project or this record and Toe came together?
Uh, mainly for this one, I would say Between the Buried and Me is definitely a heavy contender just as far as the progressive elements and the whole, the wide variety of transitions throughout the whole album. I mean, there's a couple parts that are very BT Bam-esque.
Yeah.
And let's see here. Definitely the Faceless for some of those like death metal parts. That's the vibe we were kind of going for. As far as psychedelic ambient progressions, Pink Floyd, obviously, Koji Kondo, Ray Manzarek from The Doors. I always liked his keyboard playing and thought he was great. Um, See, The Contortionist, they like to blend atmospheric,
Yep.
elements with heavy, brutal rhythms and everything. I mean, that we got Jordan Everhart doing bass for us, on this, so there was
Yep.
definitely that correlation right there.
Awesome. Cool. No, very, very, very awesome. I'm also going to say that I know it's probably not as apparent, but I heard a lot of architects in what you're doing too. And it's especially by like the melody and the tonality, not so much newer architects, but older architects, like when they were a little bit more, I'd say, deathcore kind of esque, but like when they mixed prog and deathcore and weren't so more just metalcore now and kind
Right.
of,
More
but
kind of.
yeah, yeah, but like that kind of that vibe kind of came on it to me as well too. So I kind of wanted to ask, the song titles are really interesting, and I know they must play a role in it some way somehow because they seem very, I guess, existential sometimes to what the actual song is. So I kind of wanted to like ask, like, uh, were the song titles brought in once you had the actual theme of the record, or did you just have these ideas and say, I'm going to write songs around these titles?
It's a little bit of both. Mainly, I wouldn't come up with the actual song title until the song was completely done. So that way, I'm like, all right, we're not going back to this. This is what it is, instead of, whatever bullshit name that we
Yeah.
would call it. I think one of the song tracks, the Sector Y, that a little short like instrumental transitional track. That was just called like Zone 69 for the longest time, just because, it was just whatever bullshit name just to keep it like organized. And then we didn't even come up with Sector Y like up until like we finally finished the album, I'm pretty sure.
Gotcha. Cool. No, yeah, because I was gonna, like like Meta and it's Epion and stuff like that. Like they give visions of the song, and
Oh,
I like, like literally, Meta is a very meta song. Like
yeah.
like it absolutely is. Epion has a very sci-fi kind of vibe to it. So like it kind of, as like I felt like they played a key part. So that's awesome. So I'm going to ask you a couple of probably left of center questions right now because I kind of they're in my head, and if I don't ask them, they're going to drive me crazy if I don't get to talk to you about it.
All right.
So uh, I know you're not in Denver anymore, but Denver as itself probably has one of the crazy, most eclectic music scenes in the last like 5 to 10 years that I've seen in a long time. Like it literally goes from some of the most interesting progressive bands to full on like, I mean, doom, like I mean primitive man and stuff like that. Like and there's some crazy ass black metal there too, like some of the bands that I know. Um, did that help create such a dichotomy for this kind of a record, or like was it already written without that scene being in mind?
Well, I mean, initially, most of us are from like Los Angeles before we
Mhm.
moved over to Denver. So we kind of had like a feeling of like, the Faceless and, LA death metal and stuff like that prior. So I wouldn't say being in Denver really influenced the sound. We met our guitar player Ian in Denver, so that definitely played something into it. But I mean, we love Blood Incantation, and they're in
Yeah,
Denver, so that I'd say that had a hand in some things as well.
cool. All right. Uh, so the next big question that I have is, why do this yourself? Why independently release this? You seem like to have so many connections with other bands and other things you do. Like it probably would have been pretty easy to be able to find a label to release this. Was it a game plan that you wanted to do this as a like a ground floor thing and build it up, or did you just kind of say, screw it, I'm not going to waste my time trying to hunt and peck for a smaller label when we could do the same thing ourselves?
Initially, we were planning on having this released through a label,
Okay.
but as the album progressed and everything got mixed, mastered, all this stuff, we just decided that we're gonna just have this album be like our foundation, fan growing album, and then we can go like step up into the next tier with our second album.
Cool. Um, if there was one song on this record that you think would make the perfect official video for the record, like if you had a budget, you could actually go and make what you wanted to make, which song would do you feel would be the one that you guys would push?
Ideally, I mean, I've talked about this before also, but ideally, if I had the funds, I would totally just have the whole album animated to like some sort of like anime 90s, that kind of art style, just completely like matching the story and everything. But that's a ridiculous amount of money to make happen. So I would say either Epion or Level 5, honestly. Those are my main guys right there for sure. Um, Epion is like the meat and potatoes of like the album, I would say. And then Level 5 is definitely that, melodic jam song. So both of those would be cool to just have some sort of animation with, as far that what I would think.
Well, for the love of God, I hope Level Five's made into a video because it's literally my favorite song by you guys. So that would be phenomenal. Uh, so do you feel like maybe the band is straddling two different genres at the same time? Because like I tried to stay away from reading a lot of reviews and a lot of feedback of your band before I have an interview because I don't want it to
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
totally.
kind of spoil what you and I are going to talk about. But I get this feeling that there's two camps of this band. Like there are the guys and gals that like prog, weird, left of center music, and then you have like that die-hard progressive deathcore kind of fan base as well too, and they don't see eye to eye most times. Like a lot of shows that I've gone to, there have been some pretty crazy interesting moments when those two groups come together and watch a show. Do you think one side or the other is kind of driving more of the interest, or do you see one side or the other as maybe the more main audience that you have?
Uh, I mean, for this, we all pretty much like the same things evenly, as far as heaviness or melodic psychedelic
Hmm.
or anything like that. Um, so there's never been really much fighting in regards to that. I just feel, at least for the concept of ephemeral, it was necessary to have those two counter opposite elements clashing with each other constantly. Because, I mean, the concept is this Gundam pilot, he's dying and he's fighting eternally with himself. He's done horrible things, and through his experience of dying and the secretion of DMT in his brain, um, he's starting to have all these epiphanies, and it's pretty brutal. But
Yeah.
no, no, no. As far as the guys, we all like prog and brutal shit evenly, I'd say.
You can tell it from the record. Absolutely. Like there's a good mix of both. So question, this is directly for me, and if the other people that want to watch this, awesome. I hope they get a great answer from it. But uh why so much death metal vocals when I almost feel like there could have been a lot more mixed vocals in this,
Mhm.
just especially because of the storyline and again the way the record presents itself? Was it purposely done that look, you can make this record sound super brutal but yet still be uh avant-garde and left of center and melodic, or did you always just from day one want it to have that kind of more gruff, grim kind of vocal tone?
I mean, I've always preferred like the growls and screams and everything like that. I mean, there's a couple of bands where I do enjoy like the clean singing, and it's no problem at all. And even in Level 5, there we have it for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much we wanted to show that you can have very melodic, emotional music with brutality the whole time, pretty much, and without you don't have to negotiate with it. I've seen a lot of bands that do that.
Cool. No, that's a great point, and that's what I was hoping to hear. So that's pretty cool. Um, uh, so as far as I know, you don't play the guitars, but I want to talk a little bit about the guitars for a moment because they are probably in my opinion, the most proggy part of the record. I know that you play the keyboards, but to me, they add the most prog elements to the record, especially on the kind of, and I don't know if it was done on purpose or it's just a good way to play it, but there's a strong jazz element
Mm.
in the guitar in the guitar playing, and that always leads to more of a prog rock kind of sound to me. So while the record was being created, did you have conversations with Ian about staying in a more kind of jazzy, kind of proggy direction, but yet keeping the crunch in the tone there, or was that just like a natural progression as well?
Yeah, me and the other guitar players, or Chrys, who's no longer in the band, he was writing this album as well, and Ian. Um, I would share, whatever opinion about I think this section should progress, like this, or throw in whatever like death metal riffs or anything like that. And I mean, there's even a couple of sections where I like wrote the lead on guitar, like maybe three throughout the whole album, just to like transition to like a next part or something. But I just felt, whatever that section called for, if it was too, chill and atmospheric for too long, I was like, all right, let's kick it up, have some like, tech going on or something like that, or some like heavy slams or anything like that. And then vice versa, obviously, if it's like, all right, we've been brutal for a little too long, let's chill out for a little bit, something like that. Something like Smoke to or like whatever the hell.
Cool. Awesome. Uh, so have you had any reviews or critiques that really kind of you were like, wow, I didn't really see that, or you know what, I didn't see that to begin with, but yeah, that's something that definitely is there, and that's really cool that somebody heard it. Have you gotten any feedback that kind of was like uh, mind opening that you didn't realize that that tone or sound or arrangement was there?
Yes, there's actually somebody told us that we reminded them of, I really don't remember the name of the band off the top of my head, but it's some
Oh,
sort of Australian like atmospheric black metal band. And I was like, oh, all right, that's cool. I checked them out. I mean, they're pretty solid, no doubt. I can hear like the correlation with the melodic, like ethereal synths and everything like that. But yeah, that was pretty much the only one that I wasn't too familiar with. Other people have said like Cynic, things like
mhm.
that. It utilized the vocoder as well, so I can see all those. But yeah, it was cool to be compared with like some black metal band I had no idea about.
Very, very cool. um so are you working on any new material at all, or is it kind of just sitting back with this one, letting this one get digested first, or like is there more, Lilac Continuum coming?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're about two songs deep into album two right now. It's gonna be another concept album.
Is it very similar to what this record is, or is it going to be something kind of drastically different?
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of different.
Cool.
Kind of more heavier, like kind of a lot more heavier.
Okay. Cool. Cool. No, that's great to hear. Um, so if I was to say somebody's going to listen to your record for the very, very first time and they've never heard your music before, how would you introduce the band to them right before they drop the needle on the first track?
I would be like, I hope you like progressive metal, man, because this shit's gonna take up about 56 minutes of your time.
Very cool. Um, is there anything that you would have liked to do different on this record after now having a bit of time and being able to probably sit with it more than you like and be able to critique it in your own mind? Is there anything different that you would like to do on the record, or do you really feel like you got out the idea that you wanted for this moment in time?
I mean, I think with anything, once you actually get it done and you sit on it for a while, like you're gonna hear certain parts where you're like, "Fuck, man, I should have done this right there," or something like that. There's plenty of like vocal parts where I was like, "Man, I could have, held that out longer, or added another layer there to make it more beefy or something like that." But at the end of the day, it's already done, and I just, it is what it is, and then we move on to the next one. So I think it's good and it stands, strong for what it is.
Cool. Um, so I want to go back to the artwork for a second, and I want to talk about the logo. And the reason why I talk about the logo is it is such a brutal kind of death metal logo for a band, in my opinion, that expands so wide on right and left spectrum of music. Like, I again, fan service, but you deserve it. Okay, like your record is something that I can't listen to just one track. Like I
Oh,
have to listen to the whole record. Like I've listened to it probably about, I'd say 7 or 8 times now.
oh,
And like when I listen to it, I have to just I'm gonna take my hour and just kind of be
oh,
with it and kind of listen to it, because if you stop anywhere, especially like if you don't listen to the last 2 tracks, you almost feel hollow inside. Like
right.
there's no completion. Like you're waiting for it. But so I want to talk about the actual um, logo itself is so different than what I would expect for a band like yourself.
Hmm.
So I kind of wanted to ask, was that done again intentionally, or was it just somebody did that for you, or somebody drew it? You're like, damn, that looks cool, and we're gonna use it.
Well, we actually had like I want to say 3 different like logos to like go through and compare, and yeah, definitely that one was just the most brutal fucking like you cut through and it's got like that eye right there in the center, and it just can't compare with anything else.
Cool. And so is that going to be the logo that sticks with a while, or are you going to use different logos for every record, every release? Or are you going to, because there's some bands that stick with the same logo forever, and there's a lot of bands that as they change their sound, they change their logo. I didn't know if this was like the logo to stay.
I I was thinking about keeping it for a while just for familiarity. It's comfortable.
Yeah,
But I mean, it could change. I've seen a whole bunch of other logo styles since where I'm just like, God, man, that's brutal too. But I like the familiarity because there's plenty of bands where it's like they've had the same logo the
yeah,
whole time. There's no denying it. That's their image right there. But I mean, like you said, sounds change. The way that I view this whole band is that every album is going to be different. It's not going to be exactly the same thing. It's going to be a different concept, a different story, a different vibe and everything like that. So if we have the same logo, at least, people know, well,
yeah.
it's them at least.
Gotcha. So, is there any elements or layers of music that you want to add to the project that you haven't yet, or that you don't feel like may fit quite yet, that you're thinking about doing?
Probably expand a little bit more on the whole black metal elements for at least this upcoming album for sure. We're looking for a whole like a much darker feel for the next project coming up. Aside
Gotcha.
from that, synths are going to be involved per usual, but a different tones definitely not going to be representing space this time. So going to be a little more earthy, kind of rough and gritty, maybe not leaning towards Nine Inch Nails kind of tones and stuff like that. So we'll see.
So moving away from the more like electronic industrial side of things and going to another direction.
Yeah, maybe just trying to create some interesting soundscapes.
Cool. Um, so if there was one band that you could say uh, kind of personifies this kind of genre that isn't you, uh, and there's a couple of bands in my mind that you have similarities to, but not like between the very, but like, so like, but another band that like would be somebody could listen to your record and you could make a recommendation. Hey, check out this band or that band. Who would you do to try and expand, or explore, or expand their musical knowledge?
Damn, that is pretty heavy. That's hard to say. I mean, BT Bam's always been like a fallback for that just because of how much they change throughout just one song alone. uh, but for something that's more Closer related. Damn, dude. That's a stumper for me.
Cool.
I'm not too sure on that one, honestly.
Oh, that's awesome. So I've been telling people to listen to Aborum. So like just because uh, they have a lot of the like industrial electronic and kind of death metal elements as you do earlier on. The newer stuff is kind of more like just industrial metal, but that was one of the bands that like every time I listen to you guys, I go back to them and kind of listen to their earlier records as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like
So
a cross
yeah,
comparison.
yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, I hear that. Like, I hear that a lot. Um, and I'm gonna say like, this is not a slag. This is actually me giving you mad respect. A lot of the more modern technical deathcore bands seem to have a lot of influences of what you do, but you guys do it in a much more interesting way.
Mhm.
So a lot of that kind of music kind of makes me want to listen to it again and go. And I was never a big deathcore guy. Like that wasn't my thing.
Oh,
But starting listening to your record, I can see the beauty in that kind of stuff now as well too that I couldn't see before. And your record kind of did that for me. So I kind of want to say like you opened my mind to another direction that I really wasn't listening to. A lot of like the artisan era bands that are out there, like that's kind of like that really kind of reminded me like uh that's the kind of stuff that really has kind of opened my eyes now to say like okay I can see where that's coming from. um
man,
but
ours got a fucking powerhouse of
yeah,
over there. Jesus.
yeah, and that's kind of like you had me open my eyes to a lot of those bands which I never really did before. I always loved like, and this is kind of going down a path, but hey, I don't care. I always was like a big Willow Tip Records fan because they had a lot of really not bands so much like you, but bands that added 6 or 7 elements into one band, and like do the same thing that you do, just different music. So I kind of wanted to ask: is there anything that you would say that is off the table to be able to play for the Lylat Continuum? Is there something that you would never put into that music?
Um, I mean, honestly, probably just hip hop.
Okay,
I can't think of anything else that would really be off the table, man.
cool. No, hip hop would be odd to hear.
Oh,
Certainly.
no, I mean, I've definitely heard it attempted.
Yeah. Uh, I'm just, I agree with you. That might be a little interesting.
Oh,
Um, is there, so at the end of the day, uh, with this record being done and you moving on to the next record, which you kind of said is going to be more a different path, probably heavier, a little darker. Um, is there anything that really stands out on this record as something that you would move into the next record? Like, is there something that us as listeners could say, okay, this material on this track is kind of where you're going or where you're leading? Because I really like the thing I like to do is always have my list, like my watchers, listeners, whatever, kind of wonder and think about what the next record's going to be like.
oh
So,
yeah. No, dude. Definitely, like I said, there's going to be some soundscape sections, just really trancy,
mm,
get lost in it, transitions. I'd say the rhythms are going to be more interesting as you listen like throughout the album, um, especially Meta. There's like this one rhythm section like towards the end of Meta that is like pretty intense, and that's kind of like where we're going to go with like more tech death kind of riffage and things like that, but still like maintaining that whole proggy, atmosphere.
very cool. So I know live shows are probably not in the foreseeable future for anybody right now, but if you could perform this album live, is there anything special you'd like to do with
Oh man, we just need a bass player so we can make it sound just as good. Provide that low end rumble.
it?
uh,
Gotcha.
I mean, it would be cool if we can have like some screens for live, like, showcasing like a little bit of what's going on while we're playing it, give it like that whole visual aspect. A solid light show would definitely help out also. But yeah, that's about it. Just getting down and brutal with everybody will be cool in and of itself.
Cool. And then to kind of play on top of that, live versus recording. Have you done a lot of rehearsing with it at all, or not really at all? Would it be? Would the live sound be a bit different, or would you try and stay true to what the record is?
I try to stay true as much as possible. I would say vocally it would fluctuate a little bit. I'd say better. I feel like I can do it better live than in a studio for whatever reason. Probably because I got that like, adrenaline building up and everything like that. So, make me be all like guttural. But keyboard tones would change slightly. I got new synths, so that's why mainly, but they're better. So
Nice.
But yeah, aside from that, we try to make it just as good as the album, if not better.
Cool. So I only got a couple more questions, and then I'm going to kind of give you the floor to be able to talk about whatever you need to, whatever is upcoming, other projects you want to talk about, things like that. But so one of the last questions I always like to ask is, if you could take the record and give it to anybody and have them record their own interpretation of this record, who would it be and why? I don't care if it's a current artist, a dead artist, a pop band, a jazz band. I don't care. Is there someone you think could rework this record and you would love to hear it?
Definitely Koji Kondo. Oh my God.
Nice.
If that guy can like make it into like a whole video game atmosphere, that would be awesome, dude.
Nice. That would be very cool. So I kind of want to talk about the digital age, and I like to do this with every artist or band I talk with. So do you feel like, and I kind of do, but I love this. I love to hear your opinion. Do you feel like this is like a rebirth of underground music, with, Bandcamps and SoundClouds and all the digital ways of being able to pick up music? Yeah, it may hurt the musicians like ourselves to try and make a living out of it, but do you think, like, it almost reminds me of those early days of me doing tape trading and getting zines and stuff like that? Because you find these new bands, and then what you do is, instead of like when I used to write letters overseas and get tape trades, now you send emails back and forth, or you send a Facebook message, and you either gel with them right away and become buddies with them, and then when they come on tour, you'll go hang out with them, or you realize that, you know what, it was just a moment in time. But do you feel like there's something special about this, like this time for underground music?
I mean, it's definitely convenient for anybody to just upload, anything that they make and then be able to share it in a second with someone across the world. I mean, it's just, it's like in high school, like, I found out about whichever bands from my friends, and then I would tell my other friends, or I would find out about something, and then, it would spread like that. And it's the same thing with, social media and everything else like that, just, digitally. The money, I mean, you can make money, not a living wage, but you can make something. But I don't. That was never the whole purpose of it in the first place. I just love making awesome music that I want to listen to. It's like, I've heard all these other albums so many times. Let's hear something new that I like. That I made pretty much. And I've listened to Ephemeral, not so much anymore. Obviously, it's kind of a little overplayed for me, and I practice it like 4 times a week. So but there's moments where I get like that, like that my hairs stick up and everything, like certain other bands. But yeah, the internet's definitely, I've seen a resurgence in tech death bands within the last like decade or so. That's like, holy shit, like some really good stuff is coming. So I wouldn't know for that if it wasn't for the internet.
No, I agree, and that's kind of why I was asking, because I also think the cassette underground and the vinyl underground is really kind of come back to life because of this.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
because I know if I hear a record that I really like, I'm the kind of guy that'll go out and buy it. So
Hmm.
like so that digital doorway kind of brought me into going to buy a new record.
Right.
Where I really do respect that and love that. Awesome. And then like the other side I was going to say is I'm very much like you in the respect of I would rather have 100 people tell me, "Hey, this is really unique and interesting," than have 10,000 people listen to it one time and then forget about it. Like
Oh yeah.
that's kind of yeah, that's kind of I'm. It's not about money for me either. It's about lasting relationships where they listen to the next three records because they like the first one so much. So yeah,
Exactly. I mean, it's like BT Bam. Like some people don't like them because their sound has shifted, since the very beginning. But I mean, they still maintain that core progressive element. So I don't dislike any of their albums. Like that's a band that can just keep releasing shit. Like okay, that's good.
nice,
But
very
yeah,
very cool.
vinyls, all that. Yeah, if there's if there's a band that I like, more often than not, I'm going to get the vinyl for it because I want to support them. Like it's awesome, and typically, all these like cool colored variants that they're releasing and everything. I'm just like, hell yeah, dude,
Right?
better
Yeah,
than boring ass black.
right. No, I'm totally about that too. Um, so the last question I'm going to have is going to kind of tie into everything we kind of talked about. So you said you were talking about working with a label and then decided to just kind of go on your own. So if there was one label out there that you would be interested in working with, is there one out there that you'd like to like let them know and say, hey, we're here, talk to us, something along those lines?
um, I'd say Arson Era, definitely for this next album coming up. I think it would be a solid fit for what they're trying to push out.
Very cool. So I'm gonna leave it here with this for you and say this is kind of your platform. This is your podium. Take the next few minutes, talk about this band, any other things that you're doing. If there's something interesting that we should listen to that you're currently loving, like be the mouthpiece for the people that are watching this, so they know what's going on.
Let's see, coming up, we got some shirts that are going to be available fairly soon, as well as CDs, so be on the lookout for that. We're going to get some vinyls pressed later on this year as well, so those will be pretty juicy as well. Um, as far as anything else, I mean, we just been, hacking away at this next album as much as possible, just trying to get ahead of everything. It's probably looking to be like a two-part concept album also, so that's going to be pretty fun.
Wow.
Yeah. Aside from that, bands I've been digging lately. Let's see here. Warforged for sure on Artisan Era. Oh my God, that's too good. Let's see here. Myth of I on there as
Oh,
well.
love that record.
Oh God, yeah. As soon as they had those vinyls, I was like, you better believe it. um, let's see what else. I actually got some right here. Let's see what I've been jamming lately. Brand of Sacrifice. They got some new stuff coming out soon, which is pretty cool. Demon King, brutal as always, obviously. But yeah, aside from that, nothing too crazy.
Cool. Well, again, Chris, thank you so very much for the time. Really do appreciate it. If you do get to play live sometime in 2021 and you're in the Phoenix area, I absolutely will be there and hang out and see the show.
Awesome.
I will put links to your social media and your Bandcamp to make sure people can get the record as well. Other than this, I can just say thank you for this record because this is I only do interviews with bands that I really like their albums. So, like I said, like this record's a really special record, and it mixes so many different elements that just work together really well that shouldn't. So kudos to that as well.
Awesome.
And again, man, absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. This has been Clint from the Doorway 2, hanging out with you, and I'll speak with you soon.
Awesome. Take it easy, man.